Welcome to Vin and Mike, episode 66. What is up, Mike?
What's up, Vin?
Happy Super Bowl Monday.
Happy Super Bowl Monday, and really excited to do the show today. So much to talk about, my friend.
What an amazing game last night. A lot of fun. You know, maybe a little got taken away at the end with the holding call. We'll get into all that, but overall, I truly had a good time watching that game. Just great football, you know, and the two best quarterbacks on the planet right now. And we'll go into all that in just in a 2 minutes here. Let me just get to our official stuff, and then we'll get into it. So, Vin and Mike is brought to you by Viggy Bets. You can go now to Twitter or Instagram and go a DM to @ViggyBets and tell him you're a fan of Vin and Mike, and he will give you some discounts on a VIP membership. He's doing a lot of college basketball right now, Mike. I see that, and so check him out. Get your handicapping. He's one of the really good handicappers out there and a good friend of ours. And then we're also on the Pigskin Podcast Network, TPPN. I know some people used that code yesterday for their DraftKings, so congratulations to them on $200 in free bets yesterday. So that was nice for them. And then all our fans out there in KKFI, they are
rocking and rolling today.
A lot of celebrating out there, a lot of good barbecue, all that good stuff out there in Kansas City. And then, of course, VinandMikePodcast.com. Check out our website. We have old episodes, our sponsors, our store, our T-shirts, and all that fun stuff. So all that's there. All right, Mike, let's jump right into it. 38-35 Chiefs win. I know for us, it's shocking. We really felt the Eagles were the better team. We thought they were more well-rounded, the whole thing. We thought their defense would overwhelm Mahomes, that he would have some trouble, you know, moving out of the pocket and all this stuff with the ankle and all that stuff. But none of it came to fruition. It was just a whole different game. I'll let you start with some of your key highlights, and then I'll bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tale of two different halves. That's what it came down to. And listen, when I looked at that first half, I would have bet my money live, and I'm glad I didn't, that the Eagles were going to win that game. They had all the momentum. And as you said this morning, Vinny, they flipped the script, Kansas City. And this is where good coaching comes in. Andy Reid, a great coach. Time management. You look towards the end of that game. It wasn't necessarily about scoring points. It was about taking time off that clock, and that is what a great coach does. And then Patrick Mahomes, who had that ankle injury at the end of the first half, people were skeptical, and you know he wasn't going to sit out. This was his game. And the way he was able to run the ball still with that ankle injury and make big plays for Kansas City was spectacular. Really disappointing, though, was the Eagles' defense in the second half. I mean, it wasn't even there, I felt. There were plays that were very similar, and there was no coverage. You and I could have been on the field and make those catches. I mean, there was zero coverage. I felt that really falter in the second half, and I don't know what the collapse was. But, hats off to Patrick Mahomes, second Super Bowl victory in 4 years. Phenomenal. But anyone who discredits Jalen Hurts, they're idiots, because Jalen Hurts played a hell of a game. You couldn't ask for a better performance for him. The one thing that really stood out to me about Jalen Hurts is when he had that fumble and they ran it back for a touchdown, and he kept his composure, kept his head up, perseverance, grit, and took them to the end zone the next play. He did everything asked of them. It was really what failed was the Philadelphia Eagles defense in the second half. And then we get to the end of the game, which you alluded to in the beginning of the show, was that holding penalty. And do I think it was a penalty? It was kind of in between. I think the way they were calling the game, it should not have been. They should have let them play. But I don't think that was the ultimate decider, because Philadelphia really lost it for themselves. Put that aside. Great Super Bowl, was entertaining. You can't ask for a bet. 38-35, a lot of points scored. A great game for both teams. I did think that Philadelphia was a Super Bowl that they had won, that they kind of gave away. But you can't, as we said on a show or two before, you can never discount Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid. Those two together, great combination, as it showed.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes with the ankle injury there, like you said, right before the end of the first half, and the pain he was in when he went on the sideline when they looked at it, I thought they were in big trouble. I thought he was going to have no mobility at all. That they were going to have some really big issues, and he didn't. He really didn't. I mean, he was in excruciating pain. You could see it, especially on that long run towards the end of the game. But ultimately, this guy, what a player! What an amazing talent! 5 straight AFC Championship games, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 MVPs. I mean, the whole thing. He's done it all. I mean, he's just unbelievable in his first 5 full seasons as a quarterback, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But I think a couple of things about Hurts that I just want to get to. Just 2 things that I thought were incredible. Is one, you already spoke about it, was how he really kept his composure after the fumble. 12-play drive after that, really put it together, got them in the end zone, got them to a 10-point lead at the end of the half. And then the other one for me was 35-27 when the long punt return, and then basically took the team on his back again and got that ball down the field, scored the touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, and really tied it up, right? And really did everything that you could possibly do. They scored the most points for a losing Super Bowl team in Super Bowl history. 35 is the most for a losing team.
interesting.
So, yeah, so basically tells you if you scored 35 points, you should win a game, which they should have. I think a lot of people felt if it was going to be this high scoring for both teams that Kansas City had the advantage, which I think it ended up showing. I was very disappointed in the Eagles defense. This was a defense that was, heralded and played unbelievable and has all pros all over the place and Pro Bowlers and all this stuff. And they looked very lackluster in that second half. The Chiefs had the ball 4 times in the second half and scored 24 points. So that alone tells you how bad they were in the second half. And I don't know. I still look at it and I think about it. I think Jalen Hurts, as great as Mahomes was, and Super Bowl MVP and all this stuff, I still think Hurts was the best player on the field yesterday. Despite losing, I feel bad for the guy because I thought he gave everything that he could. I don't know if you can, at that moment, right, like the biggest stage, playing the best team in the NFL and putting up 300 plus yards, 70 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown. I think they said they were 11 for 18 on 3rd downs. All that adds up. I mean, it's probably his best game he's ever played in his career, probably his entire football career, going back to college at Oklahoma and Alabama and all that stuff. It's just unbelievable. And 35 points and you lose. So I don't know. It's just a tough, to me, if I'm an Eagles fan, it's a tough day.
It's a tough day, but a lot to build on because they have the core and him as a quarterback. So I think they could get back to this stage again. The other thing is you mentioned when they were down by 8, he had that crucial 2-point conversion too.
Yeah.
He gave up his body. He went right into the end zone.
It's so strong.
And how about all those 3rd and 1s or 4th and 1s or 2?
So strong.
Like every time they just went, he piled through.
Did you see how he knocked Chris Jones off of him on that one? I mean, he is a powerful guy.
He's a powerhouse. So,
but he made some big throws. Like the touchdown throw to AJ Brown was a monster.
Double coverage.
The throws to Goddard on the sidelines on those 3rd downs. The Devontae Smith bomb down the left side.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just so good, and timely runs and all that stuff. But I do think when I ultimately think about this, that 3rd and 1 false start, when they're up 14-7, and a false start, then the 3rd and 6 and the fumble and the touchdown, and again, like you said, the next drive they score and all this stuff. But I think that drive if they would have kept going, I think they would have put the dagger in the Chiefs at that point. I think they had so much momentum and were so much better than the Chiefs were in the first half that game could have went into halftime 28-7, 31-7 kind of feel. And at that point, the Chiefs, even with all their changes on offense, it would have been just too many plays to come back, right? Because the way the Eagles handle the ball, the way Hurts runs the clock, the way they do things, I think, ultimately there's just not enough plays. That's really what it comes down to. And I really think, as much as people are like, oh, he did really good, I think that fumble, when you play it into the big picture, again, despite the 10-point lead, I think the lead could have been bigger. I think it would have been a lot more momentum, a lot more crushing kind of game for the Chiefs moving forward. So, and Nick Bolton played unbelievable too.
Oh yeah, he did. But like I said, I agree with you, Vinny, that the momentum was right there. But again, a testament to Jalen Hurts was, after that fumble again, he went right back on that next drive, and it could have been disastrous, right?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of player he is, and he aside from that fumble, to me, he really played a perfect game.
No, he did. He was fantastic, right? I mean, he was just unbelievable on every aspect of the game. I really, really thought that he put up tremendous game. It was just one of the best games I've seen on both sides of teams, And I was thinking about this, Mike, going forward, where do you see, Hurts and Mahomes going forward? I think they're the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. And we know what the AFC, what Mahomes puts up every year. And there's no competition right now for Hurts in the NFC. There really isn't, when you look at it. The quarterbacks that are good, San Francisco, we don't even know who their quarterback is. Kirk Cousins, he's nothing to write home about. Then you go to Tampa, they got no quarterback now. Daniel Jones is good. Dak Prescott is good. There's no one, that I think right now can compete with Jalen Hurts at this point. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, to answer your question, what these two showed on the field yesterday, to me, is something. They're two young quarterbacks that have such a big future, and they're both good in their separate ways. I think they both show they have great vision on the field. They both show that they could rush the ball. They both show that they don't give up. There's so much grit in both of these. They're both competitors, and they have good core teams around them. So this is going to be exciting quarterback. We may be able to see these teams in the Super Bowl again. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Don't be surprised. No. That's what I say, this rivalry.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the other things I look at where I think the Eagles failed a little bit was running the ball to the running backs, not just Hurts running, who ran for 70 yards. You look at Miles Sanders, wasn't really used too well. Kenneth Gainwell, not really used.
Not really used a lot.
They didn't really run the ball the way they could. Now, again, they threw for 300 yards, don't get me wrong, and they did all those things.
Yep.
But on the other end, you had Pacheco. I think he ran, what did he run, for about 90 yards?
He did like 76, 15 carries, 76 yards.
Yeah, and then Mahomes, ran for about 40, and they got McKinnon. And, the Chiefs just ran the ball better with the running backs as a whole. And I think that really – sustained drives for Kansas City. The Eagles could never really put them in a lot of third and long situations, which is their bread and butter, right?
Right.
And I didn't like, and again, I didn't like the way they were playing defense in the second half. 2nd and 8, they were like 6 yards off of Kelsey at the start of the play, and then they're like 10 yards deep, and he's getting easily like 5-yard catches, and then picking up the extra couple of yards and getting into like 3rd and 1s, even first downs. There was a lot of that going on. And then I don't know what they did on the goal line on both those plays, the Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I didn't understand, with the motion, why why the corner was dropping off the motion guy to the middle. I didn't understand what the thought process was there. I don't know if they saw different plays on film, or they were told if they run motion, do this. I mean, you're playing man defense. You can't let the guy in motion go back the other way without you going with him. You have to stay with the guy. And even the first Kelsey touchdown, I didn't like the way they covered that as well. Yeah. So just a lot of strange doings in the secondary, just very weird. And then to give the Chiefs a tremendous amount of credit, that offensive line
did an unbelievable
sacks against a team that had 70 plus on the season. Hassan Reddick had 18 and a half or something like that. They had 4 guys with 10 plus and not a single sack. I mean, that you got to give a lot of props to the Chiefs' offensive line. Even the Eagles' offensive line, the sacks, the two sacks on Hurts weren't real sacks. He just ran away and just stepped out of bounds a yard before the line of scrimmage. They're considered sacks, but neither quarterback got hit. You really look at it. The only time Mahomes really got hit is when he tried to scramble away and hurt his ankle. And even then, I don't think the hit was really the cause. It looked like he actually twisted his ankle himself the way he was running. So,
and also that second half, look at Kansas City. Every possession they scored, there were no punts. They played a flawless second half. I mean, they really did.
Yeah,
it was pretty incredible. But what really was, especially in that the time of, I mean, if you look at these stats, you just think like, how did the Eagles not win? They had the ball much longer than Kansas City. Their passing yards were 302 to 182. But like you said, Vinny, the rushing yards were 158 to 115 in favor of Kansas City. And that's what was missing in previous games. And as we said, for a team to really win, that you have to have that hybrid of passing and rushing yards. And that's what they did this game. And that's how they were successful.
Yeah, I think they said it was 72 offensive plays to 53 also, which, Eagles to the Chiefs. So the Eagles ran 19 or 20 more plays, but the 53 plays the Chiefs ran, it was 27 passes to 26 rushes. So they kept it very balanced. They were able to keep them on their toes. I'll tell you, one of the things that really aggravated me was the field condition. I read this whole thing today.
I want to hear what this is about.
Right? So they start preparing the grass for the field 2 years ahead of time. They have this grass at a local farmer like in Phoenix, and they prepare the grass, and then they laid it down, I think 2 weeks before the game. And what they do, that stadium has where the field goes in and out. So they would bring it out every day so the sun would hit it. So it would get the sun, right? Yeah. And then they roll it back in. I mean, they did all this work for 2 years, and that it looked like it poured like soaking rain. These guys were falling down left and right. Guys were saying they even changed the cleat from a half inch to 3/4, and still were slipping. I mean, come on, it's the Super Bowl. That's ridiculous.
No, they have to be ready for that kind of game. I mean, that's inexcusable. But we saw it with our own eyes. People were tripping left and right.
Yeah.
The cleat changes.
It was crazy. I know sometimes traditionally that after the halftime, because of the stage they bring out, sometimes there's some issues in the middle of the field and things like that. But that had nothing to do with it. They were falling down before the game even started. I mean, they even highlighted how Hurts changed his cleats in between the first quarter and the second quarter and all this stuff. So I don't know. It's the biggest event in sports, and sometimes it might be the biggest event in the world, right? I mean, for a single game, it might be the biggest event, right?
Right. And
you don't have the surface 100% ready. That's a failure.
That's a huge fail.
I will say, Bradbury took the high road.
He admitted it.
He said, I held him, hoping they wouldn't call it and all this stuff. But I'll tell you, they didn't call anything all game, right? It was very minimal. They called the offsides, which are clear cut. but they didn't call any holds. They didn't call any pass interferences. They didn't. I don't think they called any holds on the offensive line on either team, right? I don't remember seeing anything. There was no roughing the passers. There was like nothing, right? I don't know. I get it's a penalty. It's a penalty by the rules. And again, I think we go through this all the time. But that point in the game, listen, let them play. They kicked the field goal there. It's a minute, let's just say a minute and 50 to go. Now it's 38-35. Hurts has the ball. And if he doesn't do it, he doesn't do it. He does it, But at that point, I think you just got to let him have a shot. And again, like I said, I get it. It's a penalty. And, and Bradbury took, basically said it was a penalty. I did it. He stood in front of his locker for 20 minutes and took every question. So,
yeah,
a lot of credit,
Yeah, he definitely took the high road for sure.
But, I don't, you can't blame like one penalty for losing, right?
No.
Right.
But at that point, you just wish you let them play.
I know. I wish they would have. I think, to me, it was such a good game, and it took a little, just like that little, momentum away from me. I was hoping, all right, we got a fourth down here. They kick a field goal. Hurts will get the ball back. Let's see what he does. Again, Eagles win or lose, who knows? But at least, Hurts would have had a real legitimate shot, and we would have seen what had happened. So
I know.
It's the only thing that aggravated me a little bit in the end. But the refs, I tell you, the refs were a little suspect this entire playoffs, right? I mean, that Bengals-Chiefs game was a little strange, and there was
the do-over third down. But then Roger Goodell said, "Oh, our refs, there's no problems."
Yeah, he's going to have to reassess what But Goodell says the right things all the time. Listen, they're a multi-billion-dollar business. They're making more money than they ever made. They got these partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuel and all that. And we read that there was going to be about $16 billion waged on the game. So
how much is that more than last year? Did you say
double? They did $8 billion last year, and they're supposed to do $16 billion this year. And again, that has to do with more states coming on board, more people, coming on board, more people using hashtag TPPN on their signing ups and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to see just a little bit of cleaner game. That's it.
Yeah.
Anthony said they got $1 million from him. $1 million?
Yeah, those parlays. It was funny because me, Anthony, and Vinny have this text chain, and that first touchdown, Vinny goes, "Gainwell."
I was so excited. I had him.
I know.
I talked about him all week. I had him. I thought that was it. I had him. I was like, oh man, and then Hurts, which I knew you had. You had Hurts.
I did have him.
What did you end up getting on that? Do you remember?
20. I had 25 on it at plus 800. So it was
nice. See, Anthony, you didn't listen. You parlay everything. You just don't do yourself.
Oh, Anthony, you do. Listen, I've had my fair share of losses, so that's why it's called gambling. And the wise words of Anthony that, and I know it's so simple, but he said it. Give him a lot of credit. You just have to think about it. Yeah. You don't have to bet big to win big.
Nope.
You don't have to bet big to win big. And I like the way he does it. Like, he has a certain budget that he allots every weekend, puts some nice parlays on there, and if they hit, they're a really nice payout. So yeah, and they're fun to watch always.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. I'm looking for the commercial because they didn't send us a new commercial, so we have to use this generic one. Let me read the commercial, and then we'll come back. We'll talk.
Read it with enthusiasm.
What's that?
Read it with enthusiasm.
I always do. I'm very.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, New York Jets, New York Giants, Vegas Raiders. Anthony, we'll talk Chicago Bears. We'll do it all right after the commercial. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer. See, this is this summer. This is a terrible commercial. With tons of ways to bet on all your favorite sports, you can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. This is not right. I'm not reading this.
Okay.
I can't read this. It's not right. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. I'm sorry. Go now if you want to sign up. You can go to DraftKings. Right? I'm not sure what the deal is anymore because DraftKings didn't update us. The network didn't update us. No one's updated us. But you know what? We'll put it out there on a text or something when I get a better commercial because it's
right there,
I don't know if you're going to get $1,000 if you sign up now. I'm not saying that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you call honesty in broadcasting. And DraftKings is going to send Vinny a special plaque.
Yeah, they'll probably yell at me for not reading a commercial. We might lose out on our percentage this quarter.
Good mouth. I'm just kidding.
By the way, before we go into the other stuff here, real quick, I just want to thank Anthony in getting me involved in the little bit of golf betting. In that how we structure our bets on Thursdays and Fridays, where we don't have to necessarily bet the winner on Wednesday. You could see how it plays out Thursday, Friday, and some of these really good golfers, like a John Rahm or Scotty Scheffler or someone like that, doesn't have a good Thursday, or doesn't have even a good Thursday and Friday, but makes the cut. And you know that he's all of a sudden can shoot like an 8 under the next day, and you get him at like 85-1 or 65-1. And even some of these guys, 100-1 and all that stuff. So it's been one of the things that we've been dabbling in together. So I want to thank them for showing me the way of the force.
Oh man.
All right.
Off topic for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then we'll get into Aaron Rodgers. Over vacation, I was telling Vinny I was rereading the Knicks book from the 90s, which was very well written about the rivalries. And I was just amazed because I guess I had missed on it. I had to reread it. How much Pat Riley insisted on being on that team. He wanted ownership of the team. He wanted everything. And just the relationship with him and Dave Checketts and just how it went sour and how he resigned and went right to the Miami Heat. And then really what happened to that Knick organization right after that. Then just things started to go down. I mean, Riley, love him or hate him, he's a great coach. I mean, two different totally teams, the Showtime Lakers, which he took to 4 NBA championships, to the New York Knicks, which was just his strategy was just defense. And these guys didn't shake hands back then. Even like Patrick Ewing and Michael Jordan were good friends off the court, but when they got on the court, they didn't speak to each other. And I just keep reliving this 90s basketball, and we're going to get into that later in the show with these recent trades of KD and Kyrie. But back then, it was just like every team had superstar representation, and these guys, for the most part, stuck with their teams, win or loss. Like you saw these teams and you saw these superstars on these teams for a lot of years trying to really build up these teams to make them successful. And it just proves what a special time that was. And the other thing I'll allude to real quickly is just when I used to watch NBA on NBC, that was the best. Yeah. It was the best introduction. If that didn't pump you up to watch basketball, I don't know what did. And just going back to those Knicks Bulls, Knicks Pacers, man, that to me was really the golden age of basketball. The announcers, it was awesome. So, I'm really glad that I reread it. There's a lot of good things in there. And just for an organization that's been so stagnant in the last 30 years, and hopefully we're getting back to something good now with some good additions. But, man, it just brought back a lot of memories. It sure did.
Yeah. I was listening, I forget who it was, but they were talking about the simplicity of watching TV back when Michael Jordan played. in that you didn't have a lot of choices of what to watch like you do now, right? We had HBO and things like that, but there was no series on HBO. There's no Netflix series, no Hulu's, none of that stuff, right? None of those streaming networks. So you really, even like ESPN didn't carry a lot of stuff, like, not a tremendous amount of games and all that. So NBC and the NBA was like a huge thing. And you had Michael Jordan, who's, at the time, the greatest athlete on the planet. He might still be the greatest athlete on the planet, people consider still to this day, right? I mean, they're going to do that Nike
movie. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you saw it yesterday. How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon doing a whole thing about Phil Knight and Nike and bringing Jordan in and the real story behind it and all that stuff. But that's what the NBA was. He was bigger than basketball, and because of the simplicity of it, that's what you had. But for us, we were Knicks fans, right? And we had Patrick Ewing and Pat Riley, and it was so big, and we wanted to beat that Bulls team as bad as we could. We never really could, And when Riley left, and me and Mike talked about this, I think before you went on vacation, that Riley left, and then Ewing left. And from that point, the Knicks have not been good. I mean, we had a little bit of Carmelo and Amari, and this team this year is
insanity.
But it's not. You don't feel like you can win a championship. In '94, I felt the Knicks were the best team in basketball that year. I thought we were going to win a championship. I thought we were going to beat Houston. I thought we had it. Probably one of the most heartbreaking moments in New York history, as if you're a fan of a team, is probably that '94 Game 7. It's just heartbreaking.
And by the way, thank you for mentioning that, because it reminded me to say something. Pat Riley said his biggest regret was when John Starks was cold in Game 7, ice cold. He didn't sub in the veteran Rolando Blackman. He said that was my biggest regret as a coach. Yeah. He actually wrote to Rolando Blackman numerous times. Rolando Blackman didn't write back. Wow. He said that was my biggest mistake as a coach, not taking out John Starks and getting in someone to hopefully make a difference. And that's the thing with Starks. I love Starks, but he was a very sporadic player. He wasn't a consistent player. And when he was on, it was awesome. But you're right. They were the better team that year. Yeah. He should have been the Rockets. Yeah. You had the Rangers that won. And you go back to that whole time frame. It was just a special time. The Knicks were right there. They really were. So
that was a crazy summer, because the OJ incident happened also during, the Bronco chase. Yeah.
And that was another thing that they said in the book, that Bob Costas, who I love, OJ Simpson actually called him in the Bronco. He called, and then NBC affiliates hung up on OJ, thinking that it was a prank, and he tried to get in touch with Bob Costas because he knew he was on the network that day doing the Knicks game. It was so crazy. And then people were leaving the Garden, going to like the corridor, watching the Bronco chase, and Game 5 was just so, it wasn't even, that's how people remember that game from the OJ chase. No one was really watching wasn't watching the game. The Knicks did end up winning that game. And then they were up 3-2 at that point and needed to win one game in Houston. So it was just crazy.
I wonder what OJ wanted to say to Bob Costas in the Bronco. Like what did he want to actually tell Bob Costas? Did he want him to announce something on the basketball game to the world?
Who knows? Because his state of mind, you just don't know. What he was thinking. I don't know. It's a crazy time. And the other thing, Vinny, you said it, like MSG, because NBC would have the weekend games, right? But you go to Game 6 in the finals, which would usually be like on now ABC or TNT. And MSG had those games still. Like it was just so different back then.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the phone, so you didn't. I remember vividly in '95 when Reggie Miller hit those 8 points in how many seconds it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember I had left my house because I thought the Knicks had won. I went to my buddy's house, and then again, there were no cell phones, so you didn't really get real-time scores. All of a sudden, the TV's on in the background, and they're doing sports. They said the Knicks lost, and my face turned like white. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, how did they lose this game? Is it a mistake? Like, am I hearing things?"
That was ridiculous. That was like, oh my God, the pain. I tell you, the glory. Again, Chiefs fans today must be feeling unbelievable. Eagle fans, I don't, it's just like so tough. I mean, you get over it. It's just sports, right? Ultimately, right? Yeah, at least I hope you do. I think some people take it a little too serious because, the way I look at it is what are they doing for you in your personal life that it matters that much that they win, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, if that's the biggest joy that you're having in your life at this moment, you need to reassess them.
Of course, but I think that also that you're absolutely right. It doesn't affect your personal life whatsoever. However, when you're in the moment, and you're so invested in these teams,
sure. I'm just saying. I think I get a little upset at the riots.
I know there's been some broken TVs in your house.
There's broken kids in my house now. Only kidding. Joke.
Yeah.
Everyone gets crazy nowadays. Joke. Hey, big joke. No, I mean, listen. I get agitated. I'll yell at the TV, but you know me. The next day, it's like, all right,
fine. Yeah. You talk about it. You laugh.
If I go to a game where my team won or my team lost, and 95% of the stands is my team, the other 5% are someone. I'm not going to beat up the guy because my team lost.
That's what's crazy. You got these fans who they beat up each other after games and throw shit at each other.
The only thing that makes sense to me in that, and I think I'm right on this, is people bet, and they bet too much, and they lose those games, and they lose their minds. That's a big thing. And the other thing is people drink too much, and they get all animated, and they take out their anger on something else going on in their life on the poor Kansas City Chief fan.
You know what I think about? Now you're going to laugh at this, right? So you go to a football game, you're in the stands, right? Yeah. You're like a little kid, like 10-year-old kid. Yeah. And the point spread was let's say you go to the Jet game, and the point spread was I don't know, they had to win by 3.5. Yeah. And then the Jets are up all game, and then they start blowing the lead, and then they kick a field goal and they win by 3. And as a little kid, you're all excited. You're like, yeah, Jets win. And there's this old guy next to you, oh man, all pissed off. The kid's like, why are you so pissed off? The Jets won. I didn't cover the effing points.
Yeah. Shut your effing mouth, you brat.
That's the craziness.
People are so freaking out of their minds. It's just unbelievable. But at the end of the day, it's enjoyable. Sports is just so.
It's a break from reality. It really is.
So much.
And everyone was watching. That's the thing. Whether you're a sports fan or not, people just love watching the Super Bowl.
I just love the tweets about the halftime show too. Oh, that was the worst performance I ever saw. Oh, that's the greatest performance I ever saw.
There's always going to be. That's the thing. There's always going to be haters.
I'm listen, this is a 34-year-old woman who's pregnant with a child.
Yeah, you try going up there and doing that. She did a great job.
In front of 150 million people.
Up high, she was with the heights and everything and doing her thing, and then people always bash.
A couple interesting things about Rihanna, which since we're on that subject real quick, is one, I didn't realize she's one of the top 5 most selling albums artist of all time. She's up there with the Beatles and Elton John.
I did not realize that.
Incredible, wow. Right? Amazing. When you see all that stuff, and then here she is, in front of 150 million people. And before the game, she admitted that she knows the audience that she's going to perform in front of, and she hasn't been in concert in 7 years. And
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, and then I'm listening to the show, and I forgot how many songs that she actually did that were like unbelievable.
Every song that she did was a big. I'm like, oh, I remember that one. Yeah. I remember that one. Oh, she did that one. So,
but you forget she's 34, and I remember listening to those songs 15 years ago, right? Like when she was like a 18, 19-year-old, girl coming out of like Barbados, like
right.
She's like a superstar.
That's right.
So people should just like take a step back, relax. She's worth $1.4 billion. So don't give her that hard of a time.
It's like when people say stuff about you in this podcast, I tell them to shut their mouth. They don't know how hard it is to get up here.
That's right.
Every week.
That's right.
Do this. That's right.
That's right. I don't say the same for you. I say, yeah, he really does suck. But
I know you do, and I wouldn't be surprised because that's how you roll. Piece of crap.
I will say,
yes.
We do get a lot of very nice compliments from a variety of different people, so I appreciate all that as well. Yeah. So we do have a very good core group of people, and there's a lot of them. Like we don't realize it until we see our numbers and we see the amount of likes we get on things and all this stuff. You forget there's a good. Really good core of people that listen to the show and enjoy it. So we appreciate it.
What was really inspiring to me was maybe a month or two ago, we get our stats and then we saw that our downloads like increase like quadruple.
Yeah.
And that's just, to me, it's just awesome to see. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So talking about that, let's segue back to why people really listen to us. Or at least I think why they listen to us. Is talking about sports, and I want to get your feelings, Mike. So I read today that the Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is basically a done deal as long as Aaron Rodgers, when he comes back from his honeymoon or wherever he is, and arrives back and decides that he still wants to play football, that the Packers are going to trade him to the Jets. I don't know. I honestly don't know how true or not it is, but there's a lot of rumblings around that. And if the trade is pulled, what kind of compensation do you think as a Jet fan you'd be okay with? I mean, it could be nothing because you might not want him at all. But and that's the other thing I want to hear. Yeah. Give me your whole feel about it. Go ahead.
My feel's not great, Vinny. Because even in Green Bay, after Devontae Adams left, he wanted to play with veteran receivers. And we know that the Jets are just a very young team right now building those receivers. I just don't think it's the right chemistry in New York. And I'm really going to stick by that. I also think that Aaron Rodgers, he had some great years, but he's definitely not the same player that he was. And I think he's going to make it about him. Now, do I think he's a better quarterback than Zach Wilson? Of course I do. Like, I'm not stupid. But at the same time, there has to be the right mix. And those comments that were made in Green Bay last year, I think really permeated on the field during the year. Towards the end of the year, they started winning again, and they got into the playoffs but had the early exit. But to me, I just feel there's better quarterbacks out there that are suited for the Jets. I think they would have to take on a tremendous contract, lose first-round picks, and I don't think it's worth it for this player based on what I see and the culture fit. And this is crucial for the Jets because unlike previous years, they have a core that's set already. You have really strong receivers. You have a great defense. You have a good offensive line. It is the quarterback position that is crucial. If Aaron Rodgers comes, Vinny, we discussed that you have the 2-year window. That's it. So it's either make or break, as was discussed in Green Bay with that contract of his that he had to win in a year or two, which he did not do. So is it going to be any different in New York? I don't think so. I know he has allegiance with the offensive coordinator. But what was funny was when we talked about this 2-3 whatever month ago, that we talked to our buddy Kyle and Green Bay fans, and we thought it was a bunch of fluff. We thought at that time that it was going to be, it could be Jimmy G. It could be all these other quarterbacks. We didn't think this was possible. Now this is becoming, based on the news, more of a potential reality. And I really don't know how I mean, I know how I feel about it. I'm not in favor of it. I'm definitely not.
So let me ask you, what are your expectations of the Jets over the next 5 years? Like like when do you want to see them in the Super Bowl? I know you would say next year.
Right, of course I would.
When in reality would you want to see them competing for the Lombardi Trophy?
I think it's in the next 3 to 5 years.
So you think that Rodgers is not the guy to get you there in that time period? That's why you don't want him.
No, I don't. I think he could essentially get us into the playoffs, but I think it's going to be a struggle. And I think that you have to get someone who's kind of in the middle of their career, that has a lot more years, because I feel that you're going to get probably just 2 years out of him, if that, right? And then what are you going to do? What's been the Jets quarterback situation?
I'll be honest. I
want to see how you feel about it.
I don't know if I would pay for any quarterback until Pat Mahomes is 35 years old, because I don't think you're beating him over the next 5 years. I don't think you're beating Joe Burrow over the next 5 years. I don't think you're beating Josh Allen over the next 5 years. And I don't see any quarterback that's going to compete with those guys in the AFC that's available over the next 5 years. I think that's the bigger problem when I look at it. It's like, all right, we're going to get this A quarterback, but the other guys are A pluses. They're all 26, 27 years old. Are we going to be able to beat those teams in the next few years? And I think Rodgers gives you the best chance in that 2-year window right now. But at the same time, he hasn't beaten anyone since his Super Bowl run, and hasn't won in Green Bay, hasn't won in Lambeau, hasn't won championships games, he's only been in one Super Bowl, where Mahomes has been in 3, already won 2. It's just like, yeah, we need to get this guy, but are we ever really going to be able to get to that next level the way the AFC is set up right now? The AFC, from a quarterback standpoint, and you can go through a lot of the teams, Herbert and Russell Wilson right now getting Sean Payton, and Tua, who, we'll see, right? It's unbelievable at this point where it's going to happen, and Anthony's asking, if Baltimore doesn't franchise tag Lamar, would you go after him?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Anthony, I think that he could be a better choice for the Jets. I actually thought he was one of the top contenders, and I think he's a much better choice than Rodgers, because I think he has more of a window than Aaron Rodgers. And I think from a cultural fit, and again, I keep alluding to this because the Jets are a young team. Aaron Rodgers wants to play with veterans. I don't think he has the time and patience to groom these young receivers, whereas a Lamar Jackson could. So I would love to see that. So I would definitely go after him.
Are there any concerns? So my concern would be with Lamar is that receivers didn't really want to go to Baltimore and play with him, because his game doesn't really give receivers an opportunity. Like, his game is more, run the ball a lot, throw the balls to tight ends, that kind of game. Would you be concerned bringing Lamar in with a guy like Garrett Wilson?
Well, there's a little concern, obviously, Vinny, but we know that quarterbacks that come into different systems could be groomed, and I think he has the attitude that he can be groomed and be successful. So I think they can play together. I just think his game just has to alter a little bit, but I think it can be done. I think he has the right attitude to be successful.
And like, for your thought process, you're looking at the Jets being a team in a 5-year period. You're not looking to be in the Super Bowl next year. You don't think that's realistic.
I'm not crazy.
Right.
The way you're talking with Joe Burrow and all, we're in a very
I'm a Raiders fan. I got Jarrett Stidham as my quarterback, and I got to play in Mahomes and Herbert's division the next 10 years. I'm never going to see the playoffs in the next 10 years. Might as well sniff a championship game. Let's really be realistic here. It's freaking ridiculous out there in the AFC West.
The AFC is insane.
Insane. You
No,
know,
listen.
just crazy. And we know Josh Allen is better than he was. That his elbow was injured. We know Joe Burrow's only getting better. We know Herbert is going to be better now that he's got Kellen Moore out there, and he had surgery on his non-throwing shoulder and stuff like that. So we know the AFC is just stacked. I'd rather listen. If I was Aaron Rodgers, I would want to go to an NFC team. You know, you got a better shot of playing.
Remember we talked about this with Tom Brady when he saw a championship. He saw it was a weaker league, and Aaron Rodgers should think the same, right? If he has a couple years left and wants to optimize that, you're 100% right.
You can just stay in Green Bay. I'll be honest. The Vikings aren't any world beaters. Maybe Detroit's the team you worry about in the North. The Bears are a long way away. You know, Anthony will tell you they got $100 million under the cap this year. They got to really regroom that team a lot, and that's going to take a year or two. So,
yeah.
By the time the Bears are slightly competitive, and you don't even know if Fields is still the guy there. You know, he looked the part, you know, in the second half of the season, but you still don't know. You know, ultimately don't know. So Rodgers is probably, if he wants to play and win, his best bet is to stay in Green Bay.
I agree with you. It'll be interesting what happens. You know, and again, the Jets have the longest playoff drought, 12 years. So for me as a fan, it's baby steps. Love to get them in the playoffs. They have the talent to do so. I believe in Robert Saleh. I think he's a good coach. I'm glad that they did get rid of their offensive coordinator, because we just saw down the stretch there was some really just bad play calling. It wasn't gelling. So I really, it'll be really interesting who they get. And we'll probably know sooner than later.
So I'm going to offer you Derek Carr, 5 years, $200 million, 100 of it guaranteed. Would you sign him? 5 years, $200 million, 100 guaranteed.
100 guaranteed. That's a lot,
right? I mean, that's probably what he's going to ask for. I don't know if he's going to get it.
Yeah, I think that's a little steep, but I don't know.
Would you take Derek Carr on a 5-year deal? Let's say $150 million, $30 million a season, with again half of it guaranteed. So basically, you're guaranteeing him 75 of it. So he doesn't do good the first couple of years.
I would be more willing for that one.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
So if the Giants don't sign Daniel Jones, would you want the Jets to go after Daniel Jones?
But why wouldn't they sign him?
I'm just asking you.
Okay.
I think the Giants would be nuts not to.
I think they're nuts. Oh, you're asking me. I'm like, there's no way they're not signing him.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
yes, I would sign Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones hits free agency.
Yeah, absolutely, I would sign him, because Daniel Jones showed this year the type of player that he is. He came into his own this year, and we saw dramatic improvement of his game and his confidence. So absolutely. I mean, I think he could bring a lot of good years there, and he seems to keep growing every year, right? There's a growth there, whereas Aaron Rodgers is in decline, right? A couple of years left, whatever, but you didn't get anything really last year. But Daniel Jones, you see the improvement. I'd be happy to get someone like him. I'd be really happy to get Daniel Jones.
Where do you think, besides quarterback, the Jets have to improve?
I think that we could always improve on the offensive line. I think it's there. I still think we need a couple of key players there. On receiving, I'm very happy with the receiving. I'm very happy with our receivers.
Garrett Wilson won Offensive Rookie of the Year with Zach Wilson.
I can't say enough good things about the receiving and what I saw. And then, we had a lot of injuries last year, Vinny.
Oh, I know. The Breece Hall injury,
Breece Hall injury was
honestly, I think the Jets would have made the playoffs if Breece Hall didn't get hurt.
Because that was such a key that was missing.
Yeah.
Because there was no true running game, and he brought such a spark.
I think they were better than New England at that point. I think they were better than Pittsburgh. I think they were better than those teams that down the stretch. If Hall would have stayed healthy. I think it would have gotten to 10 wins. There was some games when you look back on it, if you had a running game, and especially the way he was coming on before he hurt his knee, he looked like he was ready to be like, the offensive rookie of the year instead of Garrett Wilson.
Prime example was that new freaking awful New England game where it was like 3-3.
That was the killer.
That was the game that really put them into a landslide. Mm-hmm. And if you had a Breece Hall player in that game, as bad as that game was, and as bad as Zach Wilson was, to have Breece Hall as a running back, they would have won that game. They would have had some momentum. And that's why in those earlier games, Vinny, that Zach Wilson wasn't anything great, but the reason why it wasn't being talked about is, A, they were winning, they had a running game, and then when that happened, it was just everything was based on Zach Wilson and his ability to pass, which we saw. He couldn't even make like 10-yard passes. That's why it was talked about more. And before that, they had more of an all-around game.
Well, all I know is you worry about your quarterback when he gets benched and your teammates are wearing Mike White shirts to practice, right? I mean, there's something bigger going on there than just Zach Wilson struggling with the offense, right? Mm-hmm. They might never say what it is, but there's something a lot more going on there. I mean, it'll look great. But you're right. That punt return touchdown was the end of your season. Your season ended right there.
It was really bad.
That really was it. That was it, the end of it. It's like Miami and Tua being hurt. As much as they made the playoffs and all that, they weren't going anywhere. And they have some issues too. That's why I think the Jets could find themselves right back in a wild card potential AFC East. Win. I'm not going to say they're going to win the division because the Bills are just Josh Allen makes it a little better, but
it's not out of the question though.
Tua was one hit away from retiring. In all seriousness, he's the concussions are bad there. Mac Jones really had the sophomore jinx digression, the whole thing, and then that's it. Then the Bills. I think that's why I think the Jets. Again, favorable schedule. They don't play. They play. I think a third place schedule?
Yeah, I think they are.
Or fourth place schedule. Did they finish fourth in the division?
They played fourth. They finished last because
they finished last. So they play a last place schedule. They get to play all those bum teams out there,
including your Raiders.
And the Broncos were worse than the Raiders.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Sorry to tell you. They get to play the Broncos, but they get to play the Texans.
They did.
By the way, how bad is the NFC South going to be? Right now, the starting quarterbacks in the NFC South.
Let's hear it.
Sam Darnold in Carolina. Desmond Ridder in Atlanta.
Oh, man.
New Orleans, I'm guessing Winston or no one, or Andy Dalton since he's still there. Mm-hmm. And Tampa's got Blaine Gabbert because Brady's gone.
So the division winner there may win 6 games.
It's going to be the same way as this year. 8 wins again.
It may be, yeah. It's going to be really bad. That will be, if you want to make a futures bet, worst division in football right there.
Oh, my God. We got to see what happens in the offseason. But right now, that's horrific. All right. Let's jump real quick because we're running on some time here. And you were sailing away while Kyrie and KD got traded. Yeah. So we didn't really go into it. Plus, a lot of Super Bowl talk. But I just want to get some of your feelings on Kyrie and KD. I'll give you my quick overview real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
You know this. Is one, I never wanted Kyrie when they were talking about coming to the Knicks. I know I had this discussion with you. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that guy. I'm like, he's always hurt. He never wants to play. He's going to moan and whine and all that stuff, which he did. And I was a little shocked that Durant didn't want to stick around and build some guys around him with the Nets. I think it takes away some of his lackluster, ability. Superstar, right? I mean, I don't know. I look at him as this superstar until this happened. And then it makes you think about all the times people said, he just rode the coattails of the Warriors, and he didn't want to stick around with Oklahoma City, and he didn't want to, all this stuff. And I never thought of it until Kyrie left, and then he just decided up and leave. And to me, that's not a guy that's dedicated to getting guys around them, being the number one force on his team, and just getting guys around him. Maybe that's old school thinking, because I always think about Barkley and Ewing and Malone and Stockton, and how those guys all just, they were all drafted to those teams. They all played for them
For a long time.
and tried to win and beat Jordan. And to me, these guys just seem like they all want to, form these super teams and just and don't care. I mean,
I agree with you 100% on this. I was really surprised that KD went after that, because he would have been the star in Brooklyn to really groom those players. But this is what we talked about earlier, that, Vinny, there's superstars and then there's legacy. And I just don't feel both of these players' legacy will hold up well with all this happening. I mean, we definitely know that Kyrie had the off-court antics, right? But these trades and not having to stay with your teams. And that's why I have the utmost respect for Steph Curry, because he stayed on a team that was awful in Golden State, continued to stay there and work hard, get his team better, back to the championship. That's a legacy that I look at, right? And I will never discount their playing ability. They're both good players, superstars, right? But I feel like with the Nets now, it's exciting because you got Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. You get 4 first-round draft picks, and I think a 2028 first-round pick swap in return. So you got some really good B-plus players that could go into like the A- type players and just play with heart, right? And they're actually playing the Knicks tonight. I'm really looking forward to watching that game later. But I think for the Nets and what they were going through, this could be a really good combination of people to watch, and they're going to be exciting. But that's when I read that book. I'm just, again, with these superstars, I just want them to stay with these teams. And I'm not saying throughout their whole professional careers, but give it a shot, especially as you said, when Kyrie was traded, like KD should have just went up and said, I really want to be on this team. I want to lead this team. I want to be part of this team. But as we saw even last year with all the Nets debacle, there was so much dysfunction. Remember the whole Ben Simmons shit and just everything else. But it just doesn't look good to me. And I can't get behind it. I can't.
And I'm not going to 100% blame the players for the dysfunction in Brooklyn.
No, that's what I'm saying. There could be
issues. Yeah, I mean, ownership, Sean Marks, the whole thing. I mean, they know what they were putting together there. They knew what was going on with Harden and Kyrie and Durant well before that. They traded Harden for Ben Simmons. They traded, Kyrie away. They traded, they traded all these guys away and didn't get a single superstar back, right? I mean, I don't know. They're rebuilding the whole team. They're breaking it all down. They got a lot of B perimeter 3-point kind of shooters. They probably shoot about 40 to 50 threes a game easily. And like you said, Cam Johnson, Bridges, those guys are good players. I mean, Bridges is actually, to me, a little bit better than people think he is, because he was all NBA defense. His offensive game is taking off a little bit this year. He was a lot better in Phoenix this year than he was last year from the offensive side. Always could play defense,
right?
So to me, I think they got themselves a bunch of good role guys. They need now, like we talk about the Knicks, right? Like we got Randall, we got Brunson. We need that one other bull
greatness, right?
Yeah, I mean they added Josh Hart, who to me is again a
good role player. Yeah,
friends with Brunson, right? Brunson and Bridges all played Villanova. That's right, all three of them did. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
they won how many championships together? 2.
I think 2, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, those were good teams. Jay Wright, I see, is announcing now.
Nice. Those are some really good, fun teams to watch.
Yeah, but you're right. Knicks Nets tonight. That'll be interesting. We'll see how that plays out. I think now that football is done, even though it's never really done because we'll be talking about these free agencies and drafts and all that stuff, but we'll start getting more into the NBA on the show. MLB is coming back. Good old baseball. See, Derek Jeter is going to be part of the Fox family now with A-Rod.
Everyone's happy in the Fox family. They're paying.
Tom Brady got more money from Fox than he ever did from.
Everyone's happy in that family.
I don't even know what they're paying Jeter. It doesn't even matter at this point.
It doesn't matter.
You know, A-Rod was, of course. A-Rod is definitely. I think he's been at every Super Bowl since he retired. I think he's been at the Grammys. I think he's been at the New Year's Eve ball drop. A-Rod makes sure he's everywhere. He makes even sure players fall into his lap when he's at the Minnesota Timberwolves games as an owner, so he can get on TV that way too. By the way, the runner on second in extra innings for baseball was permanently put in place today.
I like that.
That extra inning, extra guy on second is going to be part of baseball moving forward. They're going to have the pitch clocks this year. No more shifts.
Okay.
So,
step in the right direction.
I think we're going to see a little more hitting, a little more offense, which, think about Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs with these shifts and all this analytics and all this stuff. And now all that gets taken away. He might bat 350 this year.
We'll see. It's going to be.
Someone's going to hit really high average this year without the shift. Because those guys, like a Bryce Harper that can really pull the ball every time,
right?
The holes and hit. It makes a lot of contact. So that's going to be something I got to look at when I draft my fantasy team. Is ball in play is the analytic. Whoever puts the most balls in play might be guys you want to draft this year. I'll probably just give away my strategy to all the guys that play fantasy baseball with that listen to our show. But I think I did that with football, and I think that's why I finished so bad. I think Anthony stole all my ideas.
Anthony.
All right. We talked a lot. We ran over. We knew it was going to be a long show with the Super Bowl and everything else. Again, I apologize, DraftKings. I didn't want to read the script that I don't think people can get $1,000 in free bets because I don't think that it really exists. I don't want people signing up and then yelling at me that DraftKings isn't, following, what they're telling us. So I wasn't going to read a commercial. We get in trouble but with the network. Hey, I'll have the conversations with them and we'll move forward.
That's right. All
right, we good?
Good episode.
All right.
See you next week, everybody.
You got it. Bye.
Bye.